Welcome to week 4 lecture. This week's topic is families in Korea, especially, nowadays the contemporary families are quite different from traditional sense of Korean families. And before we move on to the actual content, I just want to emphasize the importance of following the guidelines word by word. For example, if your concept is Korean film that you want to define, you have to put a colon without a space. And if you're doing it for the first time, you're the first one defining the same term, then put number 1 but no space after the colon. As I said before, if you add a colon, the E-class system doesn't recognize that as the duplicate entry. So the one space makes a huge difference and the system doesn't know that it's the same entry or not, right? So please don't put a space there before and after the colon, right? And put number 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 5, right? And don't put a number sign before number 1, and you make sure that you put a colon, no space before and after, right? And I found some incorrect timestamp information in some of the entries. So which presentation is it from, group 1's, group 2's, or this week's lecture, and where exactly the timestamp? I went back to the exact time, but the term was not mentioned in that timestamp, right? So please make sure your timestamp is correct. And if you screen like a presentation or lecture, you will, catch what time it was mentioned, right? But if you just follow someone else's entry, the person, your classmate who defined the same term before you, cited this timestamp, you don't know that it's a correct one or a wrong one. So you're not making sure that double check the timestamp is correct, right? And groups 5 and 6 made their presentations. And by the way, you're supposed to read the assigned readings each week and watch the film, right? Not only the presentation groups, but everyone is supposed to read the readings and watch the film. And group 5 presentations organization was good, and group member introduction was helpful, but the overview of the film and the article can be shortened, I think, condensed a bit. The collective response reaction section, it would have been helpful to have more emotional adjectives instead of presenting some analysis of the film, right? It's like you have to, throw some adjectives like it was fun, interesting, like those emotional adjectives, right? I don't think the film was really shocking, but if the film is shocking, the next week's film, Peppermint Candy, can be shocking, right? But you use these emotional adjectives. And 2 things learned from the film section was thorough and really well done. And the relationship between the reading and the film, this is one film by the way, in this section will be helpful to cite specific part of the reading or specific part of the film or specific scenes of the film, right? And connections 1 and 2 part, I think can more clearly state the connection itself. Like what is a connection, right? Both reading and the film point to the same thing, or they emphasize this together, or one is kind of adding more explanations to this scene, maybe reading some information from the reading, provide more more background information to understand specific scenes in the film, things like that, right? I think connection 3 was better than connections 1 and 2 in terms of stating the connection. And I think the external resources section seems to be missing. And the discussion questions both were good, but question 2 was especially good. And presentation PPTs were good, and presentation was good as well. And group 6 presentation, the organization was good, and then group member introduction was good, and throughout the whole presentation it was well organized, except that at the end the division of labor information was missing. The collective response and reaction section was well done. and was kind of one section there, kind of made a connection to personal experience. That was really good. I think this presentation, the collective response and two things learned from the film section were kind of combined. Although it was good, but having two separate sections would have been more helpful. The relationship between the reading and the film was well done, and the analysis was in depth. Again, the external resources section seems to be missing. And the discussion questions and answers section was really excellent, and the format was also really great. Like one is posing the question and the other one is answering the questions, and the answers are very in-depth too. And the presentation contained really excellent visuals, like the PPT slides were really well made, and presentations were very clear and professional, really well done. Thank you, groups 5 and 6. So for this week, Korean families are getting very multicultural. Like it's very, it's not traditional, just Korean mother, father, Korean kids, right? Even among Koreans, there's so many single household families, and also one spouse is not Korean. So those like multicultural families are the number of multicultural families is increasing, and in 2012, 3% of the students are from multicultural families, meaning that maybe most likely their mother, it can be their father too, are not Korean, right? Ethnically Korean. So among these 3% of multicultural students, quote unquote, a little bit over 30% had a Vietnamese parent, and close to 25% Chinese parent, and close to 10% the Filipino parent, and about 7% Korean Chinese, and 5% Japanese parent, right? And that is this number is 225% increase between year 2023 and 2013. So in 10 years, the multicultural student number in Korean school system is like more than doubled, right? And so while the total number of students are decreasing this much, then huge increase of the multicultural student, it has more impact, right? And nowadays 6 out of 100 newborns are from multicultural families. So then, what are the dominant discourses about these multicultural families and multicultural students, right? So there is this prevailing ideology of Korean ethnocentrism, right? So traditional Korean society has long emphasized ethnic homogeneity, which can lead to difficulties in accepting and integrating people from different cultural backgrounds. And also, there's this view of diversity as a problem or a threat to society. So some group of Korean society, some segments of Korean society perceive increasing diversity as a threat to national identity and social cohesion, rather than an opportunity for cultural enrichment. And also, there's this expectation of full assimilation into Korean culture. So there is often an expectation that multicultural students should fully adopt Korean cultural norms and practices, potentially at the expense of their own cultural identity. So they should forget about, for example, their mother's culture. Just they should become a full Korean, whatever that is, right? And so the student experiences, right? They have to negotiate linguistic and cultural identities. So multicultural students often struggle to balance their heritage culture and language with the need to adapt to Korean society and excel in the Korean education system. And often many have this struggle with social integration. They may have some language barriers because they couldn't learn Korean from their mother. If their mother's Korean is not, as proficient as other Korean mothers, right? And there's a huge racial and cultural discrimination from not only from their classmates, but also sometimes from their teachers, right? So 9% of multicultural students in Korea fell victim to abuse at school versus 1% of, just Korean students experience the same thing. So in reality, not everyone can have a teacher like Teacher Lee, like Dongju Lee, right? Wonder Kid. So if you as a multicultural student can have a teacher like Teacher Lee, you are very lucky. Okay? And there's an impact on academic performance and future prospect. They often really struggle with academic success, right? And these language barriers and cultural differences can negatively affect academic performance, potentially limiting future educational and career opportunities for multicultural students. So then Korean government came up with some sort of support for these kind of multicultural family members and students. So they provide some career counseling. They run a career counseling program at 78 multicultural family support centers and provide some, support for, help them to improve reading and writing skills at the lower elementary level. And they provide 2 hours multicultural education per year. But do you think that can be enough, right? So, it's not only providing the support to the multicultural student, but there should be some, change in terms of the whole society, like Koreans themselves must change their views toward diversity as problem, right? They should change their views as like a diversity as more like a resources, right? That they can draw onto or they can learn from, right? So in conclusion, Korean families are changing, right? They're having more multicultural families. They're having like a single family household, families with the same-sex marriage. Although it's not legally allowed, but people still, they live together, right? And non-marital couples too, right? So we really need a shift in orientations toward diversity from, problem or threat to resources, right? And we need to empower this multicultural student at the same time. So this is it for today's lecture, and next week, week 5, there will be a synchronous meeting, and the film will be Peppermint Candy, and it will be nice if you can watch the film before you come to the class. And at the class, I will share some samples of the interview project video report and final project report. And week 6 will be the reading week, and week 7 will be the interview project due. So week 7 there will be no class materials to cover. So this week you have one glossary entry to make, but next week when we have a synchronous meeting, there will be no glossary entry requirement. Okay, so thank you for your time, and I hope to see many of you next week.